Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 10th edition of the annual MIT Enterprise Forum Investors Forum with IESE this year. As a president of the MIT Enterprise from Spain, it is an honor for me to welcome you all. I want to thank IESE for hosting us this year. This event brings together MIT's innovation in problem solving and spirit together with IESE's entrepreneurship and leadership spirit on this side of the ocean. Being an alumni myself of both institutions, I can testify for that. And it is a great honor for me, as I said, which moves me to profound gratitude to be here. I want to thank, first of all, the MIT Enterprise Forum Spain team, who have worked so hard to make this happen, along with all who participate, our sponsors, PAS, VITAS, Professor Oliver de Beek, who will connect now from MIT, all the IESE technical staff who are working so hard behind the cameras and behind the scenes, the panelists, the moderators, the investors. We have 30 investors confirmed today, and most importantly, our great startups that will be in the investor forum later. 56 of them have been selected among many applicants. And of course, all of you MIT and IESE alumni and friends connecting today from all over the world. The purpose of this event has been, and this year even more, to connect with MIT, the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in Spain, focusing mainly on what we at MIT like to call hard tech startups, solving real life problems in engineering and industry. And this year is full of them, you will see them. After all, MIT is a very unique place. I can testify for it after some of my best years in my life. Let me give you a couple of quick references. So MIT today has over 95 Nobel Prize winners since 1901. That's exactly 1.26 per year. So that's very impressive. And a report by 2015 of the MIT entrepreneurship ecosystem generally has generated over 2 trillion in revenues per year. In 2015, this was the 11th economy in the world. So those are some amazing numbers. And again, bringing together with IESE that I will introduce Julia now. I think this is an amazing combination to push for entrepreneurship and innovation in Spain. Needless to say, 2020 is a very special year, and COVID-19 will mark our lives. We hope this forum today, under the theme Challenges for Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the Reindustrialization of Europe in the Post-COVID Era, will bring a little of inspiration, ideas, and hopefully very necessary cash to some amazing startups in our country, solving real world problems. As I said, that's contributing in a modest but important way to the recovery of our economies. And I didn't want to end, without, remembering Thanksgiving tomorrow. It's a beautiful day in the USA. It is really a day full of gratitude, as I said, to all who make this happen. So without further ado, I want to introduce Julia Prats, the Director of Entrepreneurship at IESE, and let the 10th Annual Investor Forum of MIT Enterprise Forum begin. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. So, good afternoon, good morning for all the ones across the Atlantic, among others, Professor Oliver de Beek. Thank you very much for joining us. For IESE, it's a real pleasure to be the host of the 10th Investment Forum organized by the MIT Enterprise Forum Spain. Personally, I want to thank the president of the MIT Forum, Juan Antonio Latasa. It has been an honor for us to partner with you in this 10th anniversary. The title of the conference cannot be more appropriate: Challenges for Innovation and Entrepreneurship for the reindustrialization of Europe in the post-COVID era. And specifically, I want to emphasize the word reindustrialization. We should create value in Europe to the world. And the projects that we have seen going through this forum gives us a wide and deep hope for the future. I would like just to show a little bit what also the IESE entrepreneurial ecosystem can bring to the table. First of all, the IESE Venture Hub is an ecosystem for innovators and entrepreneurs, global and with real impact. measured by trained entrepreneurial talent and resources in place. With more than 50,000 alumni around the world in more than 140 countries, we have a privilege worldwide for new initiatives. In this context, we want to highlight the program that supports many people in the ecosystem, starting from entrepreneurs, corporates, investors, and so on. Let me just highlight, because I know you cannot see that, only one program that for me is very impressive. And it's the program that we have for more than 100 European deep tech, deep science startups, helping them to get investment ready through a complete program, helping them through the process. Also, I want to highlight that in this context, it's very important also to create knowledge. And this is something that we have been always doing together with other professors here at IESE, from the Venture Hub, again, to the world. So with no further ado, I want to encourage you to follow our activities and articles. And thank you again for the MIT Enterprise Forum Spain and Juan Antonio Latasa, the president, for this partnership, and enjoy the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Hello. So it's my honor at this moment to introduce Professor Oliver de Weck, MIT Engineering Leadership Program Co-Director, Professor of Aeroastro at MIT, and a very well-known professor. Thank you, Oli, as we call you, for being with us here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Juan Antonio, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. Buenos dias. And I'm really honored to be speaking to you. My name is Olivier de Weck. I'm a professor of aeronautics and astronautics and engineering systems here at MIT. And I'm speaking to you today not from the campus itself, because as you know, we are not completely shut down, but we are mainly working remotely during this COVID period. And so what I'd like to talk to you about is essentially risks and opportunities that I see in a COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 area, since we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I will speak to you about this in the context of complex engineering systems, and I'll define what they are. Because as an entrepreneur, if you have a specific solution or technology, I think you can only be successful if you understand how your solution, your product, your service, your technology fits into the larger ecosystem. And that ecosystem has been changing and is changing a lot. So I would like to thank IESE. I would like to thank the MIT Enterprise Forum for having me today. Before I start in the actual material, I just want to say a few words about Spain and my relationship with Spain. The picture that you see here is not me. I wish it was me, but I was not quite that good. But my first real strong memory of Spain was when I was a student at ETH in Zurich, because I grew up in Switzerland before moving to the US about 25 years ago. Windsurfing in Tarifa in Spain, the most southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula. And it was really an incredible time and an incredible country that Spain really is. And so I had the pleasure then later, I did a 2-year sabbatical at Airbus in Toulouse in France, 2017 and 2018, to visit many of Airbus's facilities in Spain, including in Getafe, in Sevilla, and other places. And I have to say, Spain is very, very impressive for its beauty, for its people, and also for its technological capabilities. Now, I'd like to start with this quote. This is a quote that personally has had a big impact on me. It's a quote that was made by Charles Vest. Chuck Vest, as we called him, was not only the president of the National Academy of Engineering here in the US, he was also the 15th president of MIT. And he talked about something called macroscopic engineering. So I'll just read this quote to you. It says, "Imagine the excitement of working on the frontiers of macroscopic engineering, the domain of larger and larger more complex systems for energy, the environment, communications, healthcare, manufacturing, and logistics. Innovation and success here will be essential for meeting the daunting challenges of a world burgeoning with population, limited resources, and justified demands for a better quality of life and more economic opportunity. And so Chuck really inspired us, and myself and two of my colleagues, Dan Roos and Chris McGee, published a book in 2011, almost 10 years ago now, on engineering systems. And you can see the cover here. We show essentially that, yes, the Earth, our planet, has a lot of natural systems, the air, the oceans, the land, but also human-made systems. And if you look on the cover picture, you can see Spain here at night. I guess this is in the morning at dawn as the lights are coming on. And we define engineering systems as those systems that have both a high degree of technical complexity, but also social complexity, which includes things like policy, regulations, all intertwined together. And these systems fulfill important functions in society. So an example of such a system, I would say, is the electrical power grid. And of course, Spain in this respect is no different. The electrical power grid in Spain is quite complex. It is changing. And I remember I was telling you about my adventures in Tarifa as a young student. I remember in the late 80s arriving in Tarifa and already seeing on the hills above Tarifa these wind turbines. This is more than 30 years ago. So Spain has been on the forefront of technological innovation, also in the electrical power grid. And we'll talk more about energy for sure, but it's a good example of what we mean by engineering system. Now, if we go back a little bit in history here to understand what's changed over the last century and how engineering systems came about, we can go back all the way to the Industrial Revolution, as shown here in this chart, and the period of what I call the period of great inventions, particularly the late 19th century was really important. We have the automobile in 1880, the telephone, 1876, the light bulb. These were all the years when the first patents were granted for these inventions. And then, as you can see on the right side, at that time, the world population was only about 1 billion, okay? And of course, the growth of the world population in the 20th century has been incredibly rapid. So to satisfy the needs of this growing population, we needed infrastructure like highways. The PSTN is the public switch telephone network. This is the old, copper wire-based telephone network. And then, of course, the electrical power grid we just talked about. Late in the 20th century, we then had different technological options or modes in transportation. We have air, we have rail, we have cars. We have in communications, satellites like SpaceX's new Starlink constellation that will be a game changer. And of course, the internet. And in energy, we have an energy mix between fossil fuels, nuclear, solar, and wind. What is new here is now that these systems that used to be quite separate are starting to interact with each other and be coupled across system boundaries. For example, the use of GPS, which comes out of communications to facilitate transportation. The problem of texting while driving, which is a big issue, is an unexpected and kind of negative interaction between the communication and transportation system. We know that the internet is starting to consume larger and larger amounts of energy, approaching 10% of total energy consumption. And likewise, electrification of our vehicles is an opportunity, but also a challenge for the energy grid with more and more electric cars. And so these interactions add complexity. And I think as entrepreneurs, as technologists, and as investors, you have to be aware of these cross-coupling effects. And the three spines that I'm showing you here, transportation, communications, and energy, are just three examples of this kind of evolution that has occurred. We see similar things in air transport and also, of course, in the healthcare system with the invention of vaccines in the year 1796. Their vaccines are not new. We've had them for over 200 years. So some of the facts and figures that I've already mentioned are really incredible. The world population has tripled in the 20th century from 2 to 6 billion. We're headed toward a world population of about 10 billion, about 9.3 by 2050, and about 10.1, between 10 and 11 by 2100. But what we have to be aware, and I think as entrepreneurs, you have to be aware that most of that growth will not occur in Western Europe, will not occur in North America. Most of that growth will occur and is occurring in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. And particularly, I think, as a Spanish-speaking company and people, Latin America, of course, should be viewed as a big opportunity here. Climate change is real and accelerating. And you saw in the U.S. yesterday the announcement that John Kerry will be devoted in the new Biden administration to looking after climate change. And there's an interesting website called co2now.org. It shows you the actual CO2 level right now. It's fluctuating, of course, but in Hawaii, where it was first measured. And the level right now is 411 ppm. When I first gave a version of this talk in 2010, the level was 390. So just in those 10 years, the CO2 level in our atmosphere has increased by about 5%. As I mentioned, the systems that are used to be clearly delineated are starting to interact with each other in sometimes new and unanticipated ways. So that brings us opportunities like better performance, efficiencies, better for sustainability, but there's a big risk. And I think we are witnessing this risk right now with COVID, which is the risk of cascading failures. A failure in one system can cause failures in other systems. And so this means for us as academics, as industrialists, as entrepreneurs, that the traditional monodisciplinary or reductionist way of thinking about these problems is no longer sufficient. We need to, you think about complexity, which, by the way, the word complex comes from Latin and comes from complectere, which literally means to weave together or to braid together. So what is being braided together here is the technical and the social complexity in these systems, shown by these two, the blue and the red strand, being interacting with each other. In my research here at MIT, we're taking complexity seriously, and I just want to show you a couple examples. This example is from a paper that we did some years ago on change propagation. So change propagation is when you're making a change in technical system. For example, it could be a software code or a platform, a product. This is for a large radar system. And that change causes another change, which causes another change, like dominoes, basically. And this network shown here, every node in this network is essentially a change request, technical change request that was made over an 8-year period in developing a radar system. And so understanding where changes come from, how they propagate, and how to deal with them is really critical. I did mention to you air transportation. And so I want to show you one of the techniques for dealing with complexity when we analyze complex systems is to do a spatial decomposition and to do what's called layering. We decompose the system into different layers. The air transportation system shown here for the continental United States has been decomposed into 4 layers. The top layer is what we call the latent demand. So this is the demand for people transport and cargo, which depends obviously on the distribution, spatial distribution of the population and the businesses. The next layer is the actual passenger flows. The third layer is the actual flights and aircraft flows. And then the final layer below is the infrastructure, airports, VORs, air traffic control centers. By looking at these layers individually and in pairs through their interactions, we can start to answer a lot of interesting questions like, What is the competition between air transportation and other modes of transportation, like highways or rail? What is the competition between airlines? What are the emissions coming from air traffic? What about capacity limitations? These obviously are not severe now because air traffic is way down, as I will show you. But when things were going well, we were reaching the limits of the capacity of the system. So a lot of the issues, such as the value to society, competition with other modes, bankruptcies of airlines, pollution, delays, and even accidents, can be analyzed and understood by taking a layered view of such a system. So when we look at the evolution of air traffic, and this is something that I followed very, very closely, especially during my time at Airbus, is incredibly impressive. So this chart here shows you the evolution of the number of passengers carried worldwide since 1945. And you can see just since the year 2000, the number of people carried has more than doubled. So the solid blue line is the total number of passengers and worldwide. And you can see essentially it's roughly a 4% increase year after year. Prior crises that we faced, like the oil crisis in the 70s, the Iran-Iraq war, even SARS, if you look at SARS, all of those have caused a dip which lasted 1, 2 to 3 years. But the demand for air traffic, both for business and tourism, has been very, very strong and growing worldwide. And so you can see this exponential growth. This time, though, may be a bit different. If you look at the depth of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis on air transportation, it's really very severe. We expect somewhere around 60% decrease globally in air traffic for the whole year, so by more than half. And we see that many airlines will probably not survive. Many airline fleets are being reduced. And we think that recovery of demand to prior levels will take probably 5 years to recover. The losses in air traffic operating revenue for this year are estimated to be about $400 billion. So it's very significant in that industry. To say a few more words about the research in engineering systems, we can think of it as a ping-pong game, where on the one hand, we have empirical methods like interviews, data analysis, also analyzing accidents. And on the right side, we see theoretical methods like simulations, agent-based modeling, network and graph theory, also real options theory. And this is how we can get really into the depth of these systems to understand them. One of the methods that personally I find to be very promising is ABM, agent-based modeling. And this is an older chart, but it's extremely relevant in today's world, which is the simulation of the progression of influenza in a non-homogeneous population. So in this chart here, you can see a simulation with scope, 100 families, each have their own homes, 5 different workplaces, and each of the dots shown here on this chart is a particular individual moving between work and home or work and school. And so the structure of the system is being modeled in different compartments. We see the temporality, the simulation of the system over time, including how many infections per day. And then the functions underlying the system include contacting, infecting, becoming infected, moving around, and eventually becoming immune. And this kind of simulations are important, especially now during the COVID-19 crisis. There have been literally thousands of studies and papers published on it. And there's a lot of real-world complexity. The chart I'm showing you here is a very simple simulation of a so-called SIRD model, susceptible, infected, recovered, and then deceased, without any countermeasures. And you see one of the main reasons why we're doing countermeasures is to avoid this peak on the red curve, which is the large number of infections that would completely overwhelm our healthcare system. I do want to mention that even though I am not a medical doctor, that COVID-19 is a topic that we cannot avoid, no matter what field we're in these days. This is a paper we recently published with some authors from China, France, Norway, and the US on COVID-19 as a complex system. And here we don't look at all the systems, but we look at the interactions of health, the social system, the economic system, and the governance system. And you can see just by looking at these arrows, which are different flows, how complex things really are. And I guess my encouragement or my warning to you as both investors and entrepreneurs is that whatever solution you are proposing, whatever product or system you have to analyze it and really think about it carefully in its context in the larger system. That's really my main message today. And to show you a little bit of data on this, let's look at what happened here in the US. In particular, this is New York City. Back in March and April, as the pandemic started to unfold, each of these curves here represents a different signal, so to speak, out of society. For example, phone data allows us to look where people are spending their time. And after the lockdown happened, the stay-at-home orders, the school closures happened, this is all normalized to the pre-pandemic baseline. You can see that people started spending most of their time residentially at home. So this is up by 30%. And we have a decrease down to negative 80% of where people spend time outside of their homes, meaning retail, recreation, transit stations, and New York City in particular. I have a niece who works there, and she confirms New York City has been a quasi-ghost town for the last six months. Interestingly, some other measures, like, for example, the electricity demand, we talked about the electrical grid, electricity demand is down, but not dramatically. It's down about 10%, but it's, of course, shifted. And so in several of these flows, what we see is that they don't disappear, particularly if they meet fundamental necessities of people, but they shift from the size or the place where they're occurring. And so these shifts are also important to understand. So let's look at some of the news that came out in the last few months. The coronavirus, of course, and the rising number of deaths, the school closures. Then we have the debt. This is going to be a big issue, is the debt that is being taken on by individuals, by companies, and by states. And for example, here in Massachusetts, the MBTA is our local transportation authority. The large amount of service cuts and huge deficits because people don't take public transportation anymore. So we can think of this as a global system of systems. I've talked a lot to you about the energy system, the transportation system, and the communication system, which are the three spines of the book that we wrote on engineering systems. But all these other systems shown here are connected to them in very intricate ways. And clearly, COVID-19 is an event, a calamity that originated and hits our healthcare system first and foremost, but it's its secondary impact on other systems like transportation, like the financial system, like the educational system, and industrial production as well, and supply chains that could have even more profound effects. And so some of those effects are clearly negative in the sense that we have a large number of closures of businesses. The restaurant business is probably very close to the top of the list with air transportation. This is a very recent story, November 22nd, from the state of Connecticut, just south of Massachusetts. Over 600 restaurants have now closed, most of these probably permanently. And this has then a knock-on effect for the suppliers of those restaurants and so forth. But surprisingly, some things are actually up. There's an increase in demand for other things. And I think this is popular in Spain as well, but definitely in the US, RV makers. So RV stands for a recreational vehicle. And they're essentially these vans or small buses that have been converted into mobile homes that you can move around with and basically have a great vacation with your family, but without interacting a lot with other people. And so RV dealers have seen large increases in demand. For example, this one here, Marathon Coach, 30% higher compared to last year. Airstream has seen an 11% increase. This was just in May. And many of these RV makers are struggling to keep up with demand. In my personal neighborhood of friends and family, I know 3 people who have purchased RVs or at least ordered RVs in the last few months. And so this is absolutely real. So to finish, I want to be optimistic about, the title of this session is the reindustrialization of Europe post-COVID-19. And I do want to say that I think there are going to be winners and losers out of the COVID-19 pandemic. The winners are, and it was actually surprisingly easier for me to come up with a list of winners than losers, believe it or not. Vaccines and personal protective equipment, sanitation and cleaning products and services, the high-speed mobile internet, online education, personal mobility, and so the people are purchasing cars again, and other modes of personal transportation, socially distanced tourism like the RVs, grocery delivery services and takeout, and of course online commerce is a big winner. Losers so far are aviation, classic restaurants, classic hotels, public transportation, large-scale events like concerts and movies, and I would say the classic in-person education. This is by no means a complete list, but it's a list that I just put together a couple days ago, and I think we see data coming in now on each of these sectors. And so as an entrepreneur, as an investor, of course you want to be on the left side of this ledger. One thing that is unknown is recovery. What will the recovery look like? This is a classic resilience curve in complex systems. So when you have a shock to the system, performance or functionality decreases very rapidly, and then we know that recovery takes a long time. What we don't know is what is the shape of that recovery. Is it slow? Is it faster? Does it have multiple stop and goes? And then the ultimate question is, after the event, after the recovery, does society reemerge at a higher level of performance compared to the pre-shock at a lower level of performance, or is it going to be fundamentally different? And so my prediction, I guess you could say, is that we can expect a bounce back after the middle of next year. So not much of a bounce back before June of 2021, but after summer of 2021 and a massive vaccination campaign worldwide, we can expect a different, more positive world, and it's going to be different. We're not going back to the pre-COVID-19 baseline. I think that's pretty sure. So I want to just finish with a short mention of we also had to adapt in education to COVID. And I want to give you an example of this, which is a class that called Designing Product Families from Strategy to Implementation that we've been teaching on campus at MIT for since 2006. It's a class that talks about how to develop not a single product, but how to develop a whole family of product based on the platform concept. And so we used to teach that in person with a lot of hands-on activities, and we've now moved this 100% online with MIT Professional Education. And I want to give a big shout out here to a company in Spain that has helped us do this called Global Alumni. Pablo Rivas is the CEO, and he has a fantastic team of people working on this online education, which was really going to be one of the big winners, I think, out of the COVID-19 crisis. So with that, I hope I didn't go over time too much. I wish you a good enterprise forum. And if we have time, I'd be happy to take a couple questions.
Yes. Well, thank you, Oli. Thank you, Professor De Weck. We actually are short for time, but I'm just going to ask you one quick question, which I think is very appropriate for you, because you mentioned about the change in the airline industry, recovering in 5 years, but you didn't say, or I would like to hear from you, what do you see and being also from Aeroastro, I'm sure have a very good idea about it. So what do you see the airline transportation, the consumer, the passenger transportation industry look like in 5 years? Will it be the same? Will we have long distance traveling so often low cost, will be a different industry. It will recover, you said, but what will it look like? Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. I think it will be a different industry, and of course, it's. I don't have a crystal ball, but there's a couple things that seem to be clear. The first one is that the demand for these really large aircraft, the Boeing 747, the A380, those airplanes where you pack 400, 500 people into one airplane. That demand it's gone already. It was gone pre-COVID, but all those production lines are being retired. So the average size of airplane is going to go down, not up. So we're talking about, the A320 family, the 737, the Embraer kind of airplanes, regional. That will be the main, the main workhorse of the fleet. The other thing is there's pent up travel demand. People really want to get back to traveling. Actually, one of my students is flying to the Canary Islands this Thanksgiving, he told me. So he is desperate to travel, to see the world. You will see tourism pick up again. However, business travel is another matter. Will business travel pick up because Zoom is so effective and other means of online meetings? So business travel, because it's also more expensive, may not recover as fast as tourism.
Thank you. Thank you, Oli. Thank you all for this very interesting beginning of our MIT Investor Forum this year. And I would like to now move on in our agenda. We will see you at MIT soon when air travel becomes possible.
Please.
And I really look forward to meeting you in person. Thank you, Professor De Beek. And I would like to move on because we are a bit behind time with our next panel. The panel will be about healthcare and life sciences, and the moderator will be Jose Maria Ciota. He's the executive director of the Entrepreneurship Innovation Center at IESE. Okay, thank you very much. We have, I think, a few minutes of preparation. Stay connected. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Jose Maria Ciota, Executive Director of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center at IESE. And today we have a panel of experts that will try to shed light on what are the challenges today on innovation in Europe in a post-COVID era, how to tackle those, and what are the future trends. But before that, let's frame a bit with some data the discussion. Let's start with the challenges. Do you know that, and according to our recent research that we published with the European Commission, do you know that around 21% of top research centers are in Europe, according to several indexes? Yet, if we go to the European Patent Office, around 95% of the 3 million patents that are there are inactive, dormant, underused, while the remaining 5% generates around 40% of the GDP of Europe. 40%. Do you imagine for a second to activate just an additional 5%? When we were analyzing some of the reasons of this deviation, we found that one of the reasons was a lack of funding for commercializing those discoveries, for proof of concept. For instance, if you check this data from the European Investment Bank on 2019, here you have in the x-axis the financials available depending on the stage of development of the companies, and in the y-axis the amount of funding available. What we are going to focus today in the discussion is on this track on funding for proof of concept for tech transfer. Then on the other hand, let's also try to advance the solutions. In another piece of research that we were publishing here at Harvard Business Review, we were trying to explore the concept of corporate venturing, which is a subset of open innovation. Corporate venturing, at the end of the day, is any collaboration between an established corporation and an innovative startup. And you have here many things such as corporate accelerators, corporate venture capital, venture builders, venture clients, and more. For instance, if we get as a proxy the number of companies using this mechanism, the corporate venture capital, we have seen a fourfold increase since 2013. Now, the question for today's panel is there any intersection possible between this challenge on lack of funding for proof of concepts for deep tech and deep science in Europe and this emerging growth of open innovation and corporate venturing? And for that, we have rock stars in each field. Let's start with Anna. Anna, that is following us virtually, has been not only a successful entrepreneur according to Financial Times, she has successfully raised both public and private funding for her startup in deep science. Also has been appointed recently one of the members of the European Innovation Council, is an IESE alumni, and also I have to say congratulations. I have seen that 3 days ago you have been awarded Woman in Tech Global Award. Now, I'm very welcome, Anna. So my question for you is, what are the public funding gaps for deep science in Europe today?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Jose Maria. I'm an IESE alumni, and Julia Prats actually wrote a case on our company, on our first company, Starlab, and also a bit on neuroelectrics. So I also feel like a child of IESE, you know, in many senses. I also live in Boston for the last 6 years, so I'm very linked to MIT and the Boston ecosystem. So my heart is right now split between Boston and IESE, and I'm really happy to join you today. Well, I think that to that question, my most relevant role is the European Innovation Council. As you know, we invested 2 billion from Europe in the last couple of years, to really bridge what you're saying. You know, we generate a lot of public papers, publications, research. I mean, we are good in turning money into knowledge, but we are really bad at turning knowledge into money, right? I think that's what's missing in Europe. And there are different reasons at the European Innovation Council that we have identified on why this is happening. I think one of the important ones that you pointed is the lack of investment, right? Me living in Boston ecosystem, I can see the dollars flying into startups every day in Cambridge in ways I don't see it in Europe, although I think it's improving, right? So one is the lack of funding. The other is, for example, at the European Innovation Council, we have brought the FET, Horizon 2020, like the Pathfinder, we call it. So I think there is a crash between cultures in research and business, something that doesn't happen in MIT. Any professor in MIT that you meet, like Oliver, I'm sure, it's involved both in academia, but also it's a member of a startup, is helping to push the knowledge into business. I think that in Europe, we just created a wall between research and academia and business. And that's one of the reasons. So I think that it's a cultural problem and an investment problem. And I think that the European Innovation Council, I tell you, I think we are doing a good job. 10 billion more are going to be released, and the agency is going to be created in January as the lighthouse or beacon of startups in Europe to scale up. So fingers crossed, and I hope we can create in Europe as many unicorns as in the US or in Asia.
That sounds like good news. And also following your suggestion, we're also going to focus on entrepreneurs. We have bring a second entrepreneur, Enrique, who has recently been awarded with the ABC Salute for his startup, creating in record time an emerging ventilator that fits, as some media says, in a shoes box, also with a background in Accenture and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, Enrique, and now all the speakers, you can leave the masks. My question for you is, in your process from ideation to the market, how do you find that those funds and those partners for the proof of concept? How did you move from the idea to the market?
Well, first of all, Jose Maria, thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. I am, let's say, the founder of Enomotive. We are a company that started in 2014, right? And what we do essentially is we connect companies that are willing to innovate with entrepreneurs, with engineers, and even startups from all over the world, right? So, we, in these, let's say, 5 years, we have done really amazing things from systems for, detecting fire in forests, from, other systems for asphalting under the rain, very complex systems for mining, underground mining, many amazing things, right? So the funding really comes from the companies that are willing to innovate, right? And so they are funding the post of our challenges in our platform, where all this community of engineers, more than 20,000 people and startups, are proposing, their solutions, right? So this is, essentially the funding where it comes from. In the case of Oxivita ventilator, the emergency ventilator that we deliver, it was a little bit different, right? Everything started with a discussion with my partner in order to see how we could, from Enomotive to help the society, save lives, right? And then we decided to launch a challenge and to involve our community in a non-profit initiative, for producing an emergency ventilator in a record time, right? And so it was ourselves, it was Enomotive, together with also some other colleagues, and the community of Enomotive, obviously, which funded, let's say, the first initial steps and especially the prototype, right? But it was also very interesting where, when we initiated, this process, we obviously realized that developing a ventilator was something that could not be done alone, right? So we were then looking for other partners for the healthcare system, and then we found the Vitas hospital group, which is one of the main healthcare systems in the healthcare hospital network in Spain, in order to help us, let's say, well, validate, and homologate this ventilator in front of the government, and so that was, let's say, the medical part of this project. And in addition to that, also we engage with with an electronics manufacturer in order to help us doing the industrialization of the product in order, let's say, to bring it to the market, right? And well, I cannot, let's say, obviously forget Lintia, which is a company that is a communications company. It's a company that connects businesses, with their fiber optics network. That helped to fund all the ventilators, or most of the ventilators that have been donated to Ecuador, Peru, and so on, right? So at the end, it was a different challenge, and well, it was let's say the result of a project team, a consortium of companies, many other collaborators that obviously I don't have time to mention, but that were joining forces to save lives.
I can imagine that you mentioned several times the word pilot or doing a test. Also, we have here the perspective of a corporation from Gabriel that we will say a few words later about him. But what are the main internal barriers a corporation face in working with a deep science entrepreneur? But first, keep in mind, who do you have in front of you? And I would say congratulations, you have been appointed the new director in Pascual Innovations, and also Pascual have been recently done several initiatives on corporate venturing, such as Startup Pascual Innovations, and you have a previous background in Google, Berkeley's, as an investment banker, and also you are an MIT alum. So what are the main internal barriers you face when working with an entrepreneur, precisely with a deep science entrepreneur?
Well, I think the 95% data point that you were illustrating speaks to the fact that I was going to talk about, because it's very hard to go from idea tech, like technological differentiation, to business model that scales and works. So when we're working with science-based entrepreneurs, and Anna mentioned it, the culture is different, but there's also a knowledge difference, right? Because and I think it's our role that we play, but we have to guide them. And there's a lot of questions to be asked about, how are you going to contact the customer? What's your total addressable market? Sales channels, especially distribution and supply chain. When we're talking in our world, food and beverage, you can have good technology that doesn't necessarily scale or adapt to your supply chains. So you have to work on that, and it takes time. And that's another challenge. Large corporations are not fast enough to be able to collaborate at the expectations of the entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of mismatch there. And the other one I would say is it's also a lot of really good tech and good science entrepreneurs don't necessarily have the regulation inside of their heads, what you can say in terms of marketing, food, and when we get to those spaces, there's a lot of barriers that you need to teach them in a way, hey, you can't say this, or there's regulation that you can't develop this product in this way. So yeah, and I guess our barriers, it's the execution side, mm-hmm. and adapting the plans that the company has when they see something that is better and more innovative out there, mm-hmm. And being able to say, okay, the 2-year plan that we had, suddenly it's not going to be this way, and it's going to be this other way, collaborating with this startup. And I think large corporations don't necessarily have that openness.
So from there, I can extract agility, speed, flexibility, talking about internal barriers. Now let's move to external barriers. And for that, I would like to ask to Angel, what are the external barriers to collaborate with a deep science entrepreneur? Here we have kind of a love story. No? You have here a success story between Oxivita and Visas. And I have to say also you have a great background in that direction. Not only because of your travels around the world in Weill Cornell, University of Helsinki, your previous background in Merck, but also you have been recently appointed scientific director among many other titles in your company. So what are those external barriers for those proof of concepts to collaborate with a deep science entrepreneur?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to also thank the organization for inviting me here today, and also Jose Maria for this introduction. Well, let me give first a little background about what we are or what we do. We are the second bigger healthcare service provider in Spain, with almost 20 hospitals all over the country. And as such, there is something that we are good at, and that's it, dealing with healthcare services and manage a lot of medical data. We have a huge amount of highly qualified professionals and huge amount of data. So when it comes to innovation, what we are very good at is to provide a platform for scientific and clinical validation. And this is why Enomotive came to us, because we know how to deal with that. We have done clinical trials, we have done basic research, translational research, observational study, and we know how to deal with that. So when the company comes to us, one of the main problems they have to face is regarding regulation and money. So as Gabriel said, they don't have in the head the enormous regulation that comes to to regulate how to do the clinical trials, the clinical studies with human. All the clinical essays in humans has to go through independent ethical committee, and also sometimes they have to go through the Agency for Drug and Medical Devices. And that means a lot of time, that means a lot of paperwork that you have to fill up, and that means a lot of essays you have to do. And in addition of that, it costs money, and that is another thing that usually surprise people who come to us for validate different platforms. So I would say that there is the two external barriers that are very important anytime you have to validate at scientific or clinical levels any device, process, or treatment. It's regulation and how much it costs.
Right. So now what we have is a picture of internal and external barriers for doing proof of concepts in this environment. It's interesting that you have mentioned Gabriel, because he's going to be the next question for him. Now we're going to try to provide some hope to the audience that is listening to us. Let's try to find some solutions. So Gabriel, I was shocked because I have seen that you are a professional alpine skier.
No, not professional, no.
Almost. One day you have to show us the how. And I assume that when you are doing that ski, I have no idea about the ski, but I assume that you have to take a lot of decisions in a very short period of time. So my question is, from the perspective of innoventures, that I assume that you have to also take, or your company has to take a lot of decisions. What are the financial and strategic KPIs that your company prioritize when choosing startup A or startup E? And how do you measure strategic value? Tough question.
Well, I like the analogy with skiing. I think in skiing you react, right? You react, whereas KPIs, just by its word, defines measurement, planning, and all that stuff. So, but when dealing with these open ecosystems, open innovation ecosystems, there's an element of reaction because it's a complex adaptive system. It's not linear anymore. So you can't really forecast what's going to happen in the future. There are too many places, too many players interacting. And so that's why you have these new methodologies that sort of you just have to assure that the right conditions are there, and then sort of let it flow, and trust that the right outcome will pan out. No, in terms of strategy and financial KPIs, when we set up Pascual InnoVentures, it was all about strategy KPIs. Financial KPIs are important, but it's not why you set up a corporate venture capital, because we're not a financial player, and we don't aim to be one. Strategy KPIs, that is access to new markets. You're basically created to future-proof growth and the continuity of your business, right? And you know, every sector is being disrupted, and new players. Most of the innovation is coming from startups. Well, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of innovation is coming from startups. And if you want to be innovative, you have to have a connection with them and work with them. It's access to new markets. It's possibly M&A opportunities down the road. It's synergies. You know, a lot of the solutions that to the problems that we're facing our day to day are coming from startups. So there are a lot of synergies to exploit. And financial KPIs, the good thing about corporate venturing is that you're able, versus venture capital, traditional venture capital, is that you're able to take a longer term approach, and you're also putting aside things like IRR, payback, which is in everyone's mind whenever you're evaluating a corporate investment project, right, in your company. And those things are not as important anymore, and so you're able to, to develop a longer term, more disruptive solution to your problems.
I'm going to try to do kind of a miracle that is in 2 minutes. I have to shoot one question for the 3 pending panelists, and you have to answer in 15 seconds. So, sorry, because I have just seen that number there. My question first for you, Enrique, is what would be the top 1 recommendation? I'm going to shoot the 3 questions right now. Connected on KPIs, Enrique, what should be the top 1 recommendation to reduce the cost of a POC? For Angel, would be, on terms of IP, how do you suggest to manage a POC, or any top main observation? And for you, Anna, would be, what is going to be the main measure from the IESE that we're going to foresee to tackle this valley of death in the next 1-2 years? You have 15 seconds to answer. I'm sorry for that.
Yes.
Enrique, you start.
There's no problem for reducing time, and cost for a product like this. I would say that the first thing is to do a good selection, of the proof of concept that you are going to build, right? This is the first thing, right? So we had in our challenge 100 participants, around 50 different solutions, right? And then we select the one that was easier to build, that was really scalable, easy to use, very, very safe, because it was a medical device, and so on and so forth, right? And the second is to have a high performance team, right? You don't really need massive people, you really need, few people, but very good people, that can do things very effectively.
Selection and team. Angel.
Well, I would say that the most important thing is to share the risk at the cost of the co-development of different devices, processes, or whatever it is between the startup and the hospital.
Sharing cost of POCs with the ecosystem. Anna.
Yes, I think that from the IESE, one of the measures that I'm most interested from the entrepreneurs in the audience is that for the first time in history, the European Commission can directly invest in startups up to 15 million in investment capital. So I hope we have a lot of investments in companies. And then the positive message for the entrepreneurs in the room, don't get scared for all these things. I think that if you want to create your company and scale it up, you just have to work hard. And as an example, and Jose Maria knows, I took this technology, which you can see here, right? We made it in Barcelona to stimulate brains. And in November, I went to the FDA to approve a pivotal design on epilepsy, and they were so impressed. Made in Barcelona, made in Spain, the first device that will go through the FDA for epilepsy patients. So, no matter what people tell you, just keep on rowing and follow your dream and you can make it. There are plenty of examples out there. So go for it, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so in short, I'm going to try to wrap up. So there is some challenges on the environment, on our internal institutions, on terms of the value of the proof of concept and others, but we foresee hope for the forthcoming years from entrepreneurs, from corporations, from hospitals, from Europe. Thank you very much. You are a great panel, you are a great audience. Hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today at the MIT Enterprise Forum of Spain panel on energy, clean energy and industry 4.0. We have an outstanding panel today, a mix of public and private institutions, all working jointly and in collaboration to reach the goals of the energy transition. The previous panel mentioned that Europe has a real challenge in the area of health. Well, in reaching all these innovations from the great universities and technology centers to the market, this tech transfer that doesn't end up becoming monetization and value to the economy. Well, this is actually the topic today, and I'm very grateful for the great panel that we have. To start with a broader view and in terms of initiatives, let's start with our panelists from the European Commission. We have Professor Rudy Ernoth. He's Chief Economist at the Commission and also Professor in Ghent, extremely experienced in the field of energy and also aerospace, very MIT, and needless to say. And Rudy, could you tell us a little bit about the key trends that you see in energy transition, the objectives of Europe, and how can we make Europe, and in particular Spain, a key player? What is the role of the Commission? What's the role of the ecosystem also for the Agenda 2030 and 2050? What's your view? What are the challenges, and how can we assist?
Thank you, Clara, for this open questions, and congratulations with your seminar. Because I think if you want to get out of the crisis, it will happen through entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. So it's a good time for the crisis. And if you look to Europe, what are the two biggest challenges for the moment? The first biggest challenge is the investment gap, because we are very ambitious. We said 2050 climate neutral, 2030 minus 50% CO2 compared to 40 years ago. Well, to do that, you need investments. There was a German think tank who calculated that the investments that you need for renewable energy, energy efficiency, construction efficiency, it's about 3 trillion. That's more than twice the GDP of Spain. So that's enormous. So we need investments. And indeed, we have the Green Deal, which is 750 billion. It's quite a lot. But on top of that, of course, we have to leverage a lot of private money. And that's very important. It's not the public alone. We should really find a perfect public-private partnership in order to get there. And the second challenge, and I refer to what has been said by Anna before, the second challenge is we speak about entrepreneurship and you always say, oh, the Americans, they are better. Well, sorry to say, this is not always the case. If you look to the startup scene, the last 10 years, Americans has 45% of the venture capital backed companies. In Europe, we are 35%. So we are almost there. The big problem in Europe is the next phase, to grow financing, the scale-up gap, as we call it. And there you see, indeed, if you look to unicorns, Europe, you have 14%. And by the way, half of them are UK. I'm not sure if you still can count them. And of course, the United States has 50%. So the second challenge will be that if we turn those ideas into action and into startups, that then the companies, once they get big, that they can scale up in Europe and that they don't have to leave Europe in order to find money. So to summarize, the first big gap is the investment gap, which you have to cope with, and the second one is the scale-up gap.
Thank you very much. And that takes us very nicely into our next speaker, Maria Sansigre, who is willing to break that investment gap. Maria has extensive experience in venture capital. She has been investing in the area of energy for the past 15 years, and now is very proud that she's going to announce us the new fund with Alantra Ventures Energy Transition. And Maria, can you tell us a little bit about what are the key technologies and the key type of companies that you're investing on in terms of, and what are you looking for in these companies, and the type of, the stage that the companies are on, and what do you think are the key challenges that Spain has? You're also investing Europe-wide.
Yeah, so. Thank you, Clara. In fact, Clima Clima Fund is a fund 100% focused on the energy transition topics. And this fund is a later stage fund, so is willing to invest in this, covering this financing gap that today exists in Europe. So our strategy is to invest in Series B plus companies. It is commercial revenue companies, and with the first ticket from 6 to 8 million euros up to 15 million euro. Including follow-on. So the fund will have about 150 million euro. And our idea is to finance 12 to 15 companies across Europe, including Israel and UK. And maybe we will execute some investment in the US as well. But the majority will be deployed in Europe. And 100 focused on the main sectors, which will be trend on the next 10 to 20 years to make possible the energy transition.
Fantastic. Do you think Spain has interesting startups to invest on?
Well, Spain has, but less than other regions in Europe, because here we don't have as many funds, Series A funds, financing energy transition startups.
So we come again to the point of what's missing really is the growth period. So we have good startups, good technology, but they don't scale as much as the ones that are in the US.
Well, for example, if you look at the examples of France or the UK or Germany, in Europe in general, there are a lot of funds of financing Series A and seed. But then after, when the company is raising a 40 million euro round, then you don't find investors with the capacity of leading these rounds.
Very good. So we need to find, I guess, co-investors also in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Maria. Let's move on to Enrique Olarte. Enrique is the Open Innovation Coordinator at Enagas. Enagas is a Spanish company that has been for the past 5 years investing in open innovation initiatives, actually quite a leader in Spain in entrepreneurship and in creating spin-outs from their own projects to develop and to grow outside of Enagas. Enrique, could you tell us a little bit about this experience in the past 5 years? What are your metrics to measure success? And also, what is your vision for the future?
Okay, thanks, Clara. Thanks, MIT and IESE for inviting us. Yes, as you told, Enagas is an international leader in energy infrastructures with 50 years of experience, and it currently operates in across 7-8 countries. But the main challenge Enagas currently faces is the energy transition. And we think one way to address this challenge is adding disruptive technologies through open innovation. Because, well, as you know, with outside thinkers, we can be fast, we can be agile, using new perspectives and skills to enrich the company. And so, Clara, as you asked me, in the 5 years since Enagas founded its entrepreneurship and open innovation program, Enagas Emprende, we have been in touch with more than 1,000 startups and entrepreneurs, and currently we are collaborating with a portfolio of 15. In total, with all these startups, we have 25 million euros under management, and we are now a team of 11 members. And finally, I can tell you that, well, as Maria Sansigre told us, we have also launched with Alantra 150 million euros Euro fund for European companies in energy transition.
In fact, it's my fault. I forgot to tell that Enagas is our cornerstone investor, like Clima's cornerstone investor. So it's like let's say it's the result of a partnership between Alantra and Enagas. And I'm sorry because
no worries. It's okay. No worries.
Thank you.
And you are the experts in this kind of investment, so you are the leaders here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Let's move on back to the public innovative sector. And I say innovative because I think the Basque Country has probably, and please don't quote me on this, but probably the most innovative government participation in the support of startups and also the innovation ecosystem. We have here with us Leire Madariaga Gangotti. She's the head of the entrepreneurship and innovation area at the Basque government. She was also in previous roles at Tecnalia, which is the biggest private technology or association of technology centers in Spain, and very much focused on technology transfer from knowledge from universities into the market. Very, very happy to have Leire here with us today. Leire, could you tell us a little bit first about how you see the Basque Country playing a role as an industrial leader in closing this innovation and new technologies, but linked to the industry? And secondly, could you talk a little bit about the program, the Bind 4.0 venture client program that you have experienced? What are the results? Are you happy? And what are the, I guess, the key benefits of this program? If you can share this with us.
Thank you very much, Clara, for your introduction and your nice words. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you also to MIT and IESE for this invitation. Answering your question, I will start explaining or sharing with you, as many of you know, that the Basque Country is one of the strongest industrial ecosystems in Europe. Almost 25% of our GDP comes from industry. And at the same time, we also have, let's say, an entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has long been a way of life in the Basque Country too. So we are very proud of these two characteristics, and we try, one of our, coming from a public sector, from the public government, one of the things we have always tried is to support the industry. Why? Because we consider that industry is one of the keys of economic development. It provides high quality employment. It provides solid and long-term stability of the economy. It also allows productive diversification and economic growth. And finally, and I will come to the technological and entrepreneurship, we also think that industry investments, the investments that industry makes in technology, in energy or climate transition, or in digitalization is one also of the keys of having a competitive economy. So that is the reason why in the Basque government we have always supported the industry, and we will continue. We are very keen on doing so, and we will continue doing so. One of our strategies, of course, has been entrepreneurship for the last 20-25 years. And we do have a public system that supports startups in the Basque Country, that supports also well, financially and with services. But 5 years ago, we understood, or we thought, or we saw that we had to make we had to make closer our industrial sector, our companies, with the startups, in order also to promote, or in order to make, let's say, a more stronger ecosystem in terms of entrepreneurship. So we launched a program called Bind 4.0, and I won't say that what Rudy was saying before about the lack of financing is not important. Of course, it is important, but the approach that we took was more what we call a venture client approach instead of the traditional venture capital approach. What does that mean? That the companies, the big companies that belong to the program, that are now engaged in the program, at present we have 57 big companies engaged in the program, they commit themselves to contracting, to signing a contract with the startup. So the Bind program makes an exhaustive scouting of startups For example, in the last edition that is now taking place, we have had more than 700 startups from all over the world. And after this scouting, we put these startups in contact with these 57 big companies. It is true that the startups can come from all over the world. The companies, the big companies we support, in principle, they are only Basque companies, companies that have, let's say, the headquarters or that have an office in the Basque country. We put them in contact and they start working together. And the big company, let's say, chooses at the end of the process, chooses 1, 2, or 3 startups with whom they commit themselves to develop a project in the coming months. So that is the difference, or one of the differences of our acceleration program, because of course, after that also, not only the contract, we also provide to the startup an acceleration program of 6 months, in which on the one hand, they develop the project, and on the other hand, we also give them support services in order to have access and in order to increase their knowledge in terms of financing, in terms of marketing, in terms of digitalization, and so on, so that they acquire, or they are able, something that has been also said in the previous panel, they are able also to acquire this growth that is so necessary in order for them to survive. No? So this is in brief what we are doing in the BIND program, and I'll stop here in order to have the opportunity to explain later on all more of the details.
Thank you very much, Lady. Very impressive. So this is again one positive, and I want to make this panel about positive and success stories of things that are working. There are many challenges, but also several success stories of cases where public-private collaboration is being successful and proof of concept is becoming a fact and a success. Now we have our final panelist. I'm very happy to welcome Fernando Sandoval. He's the manager of the Enel Innovation Hub and has been in different roles at Enel since 2008, always in the area of innovation and entrepreneurship. He now has this role really looking for the best entrepreneurs to help with the different challenges that Endesa Enel currently has. And so could you tell us a little bit today about the key initiatives that you're running at Enel Endesa Europe, and also what are the success stories that you can tell? I know for a fact that many entrepreneurs have a very good experience when they enter into your process. And for me, the key question would be, what is the secret to make this collaboration for the proof of concept successful, and then expand it into different areas, different affiliates at Enel Endesa?
Thank you very much, Clara, for the invitation, and thank you to MIT Enterprise Forum and to IESE. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. So, I think it is important to point out that we have a venture client approach. So it means that we do not invest in startups. We do not accelerate the startups. What we want is to do business with the startups. And this is because we have an innovation to business approach. So it means that all innovation that we do is because we find it to have an impact, direct impact on our business, and of course, in sustainability. That is why as well, our area of innovation, it is called innovability. It is putting together innovation and sustainability. All innovation we do is because we are committed as a company towards sustainability. So all of this relationship with the startups usually starts with a POC, with a proof of concept, with a pilot test, because we want to be sure that it is the right technology that we are looking for, that it properly integrates with our infrastructure, with our processes, with our teams. And we want to test as well the business case, because this is fundamental part of this innovation to business approach. So far, we have been able to work with more than 320 startups in the last 4 or 5 years, out of which about 70 have become what we call scale-ups within the group, meaning that they are actual suppliers of the group, not a POC anymore, but that we are able to have a commercial relationship with them. these startups come from everywhere. We have a footprint as innovation hubs in 4 different countries. We are present in North America, South America, Europe, and Israel. We have 10 innovation hubs already, and this is basically because we know that innovation is to be found anywhere. So it is true that there are very relevant innovation ecosystems, such as Israel, such as Boston, or Silicon Valley, where we have some of our innovation hubs. In fact, the one that the last that we have opened last year was in Boston. But not all innovation come from these ecosystems. So we have been able to identify startups coming from many different countries. In fact, in Europe, we are working with the startups not only from UK, France, Germany, which are relevant ecosystems, but of course from Italy and Spain, that are our main markets in Europe, and also from with startups coming from Lithuania, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, other countries of the European region. Talking about success cases of Europe, we have, for instance, Envelio, that is a German startup, which we have tested in Brazil in order to identify the most suitable places to connect distributed energy resources to our infrastructure, to our networks. So this is an example of how we, from Spain, have scouted a startup from Germany that is implemented in Brazil. We have, for instance, Skelex, that is a startup from the Netherlands, developing exoskeletons that has been tested in Italy in order to help our operators on field when they do overhead work. Take, for instance, a worker that is on a ladder trying to fix something in an overhead infrastructure network. Then this exoskeleton is helping him to do the work safer and faster. So these are a couple of examples of the startups we have identified. Very relevant, and as you said, well, what is the secret? So the secret here is always working with needs and challenges coming directly from the business, having the business directly involved from the very beginning in the testing and in the sponsorship of the project, and then having all the tools in place so that they can work together. So this means working with legal departments, with procurement departments, in order to facilitate working with the startups. It is completely different working with a major vendor than working with the startups. And we have been able to put the teams in the company to talk in the same language with the startup. And I think just to close, what is most important for us is to see that teams are going directly to scout the startups. So sometimes we find that they are not taking us into account anymore to look for the best startups for them. Teams are going directly to work with the startups. So this means that it's already within the DNA of the group, working with the startups. It is not something that we are promoting from innovation or from the innovation hubs anymore. It is already something that everybody is doing, and that they know how to do it and are willing to do it.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Well, I think we just have a couple of minutes more, and I'm going to ask you just to tell me in 15 seconds, each of you, what is your recommendation for the startups that are watching today, the ones that have been selected for the Investors Forum in the area of energy transition, and everybody watching from home. What is your recommendation? In the case of Rudy, what is the recommendation in terms of access to finance and access to European programs? In the case of the big companies, what is your recommendation very shortly on what a startup needs to work with you, and what are you looking for? But we just have 15 seconds.
Okay, the idea would be that every good project finds its money. And therefore, we have a lot of projects. We have the European Aviation Council. We approved last month 150 projects 30% were even women-led who do something. And now the next thing is we want more funds like Maria's fund. That's why we invented a new program, Excalar, to make our funds bigger. So the idea would be that from the next period, every good project find its money in startup and its scale up, and we will work for that.
Thank you. Also, you also have the European Battery Alliance and the EITs, InnoEnergy, etc., who are doing extremely a fantastic job in public-private partnerships, also in Spain.
Indeed, and the next period, 2021, 2027, it will be such an opportunity for startups. So don't let Europe be beside. We really do something together with Spain and with the local authorities. And we should, like in the Basque country, everywhere have 25% of GDP and industry. Some countries have only 16%. This is not lasting model.
Thank you. Maria, would you like to add
well,
something?
In my case, I will say that big projects that require big money also require a big addressable market. So as a startup, don't forget to be very careful when you are estimating your direct market, because it is directly linked with the capacity of your company to scale and it is very linked in some way to the financial capacity as well.
Perfect. Money, scale, and financing capabilities. Think about that when you're doing your business plan. Enrique.
Well, just to say that if is there any startup that is specializing in renewable gases, biogas and hydrogen, sustainable mobility, energy efficiency, energy storage, just contact Enagas Emprende, join us, and good luck.
Thank you. Leire.
Well, of course, I agree with everything that has been said up to now, but in order to add something new, I would tell them not to be afraid of failure. We have been speaking all the afternoon about the cultural barriers and the differences between the United States or Europe or Spain. It is true that in our culture, we are afraid of failing. We think that if this doesn't work once, we will never have an opportunity again. And we firmly think that we have to I don't know how to break that barrier. It doesn't work. It's not easy. Many times it doesn't work the first time, but there are many ideas out there, and there will always be ways through financing, through services, through support, for good ideas to come out, because we definitely need them in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Leire. Fernando.
My recommendation would be to focus on use case, not thinking about the technology anymore, but those needs, those pain points that the technology is able to solve. That is the best way to get in contact with corporates and to start working with them. We are looking for solutions all over the value chain. Take into account that renewables is the future, so we need to be able to build faster, safer power plants. We need to do the operation and maintenance of those power plants. Then we need to do the electrification of demand, that is the customer part. We need more electric mobility. We need flexibility, demand response, and so on. And then we need to work as well in the network, because that is the backbone where everything is going to be connected. So we're looking for solutions all over the value chain of the energy. And my last recommendation is to go and check Reshape. That is the open call we have for startups right now. The deadline is November 30th, so you still have time. It is startup.nl.com, where you can find all the information about the call.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this fantastic panel. We've talked about not being afraid of failure. We've talked about investing and looking at the investment opportunities. We talked about looking at what the corporates' challenges are. And we talked about connectivity and Europe also supporting with initiatives and with lots of funding. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
momentito. Te presento y tú te quedas. Okay, well, here we are again. Thanks for the wait for this fantastic award ceremony. This is the most fun part of the afternoon, and I'm going to because we're running a little bit late. I'm going to go straight into the awards. Just warning everyone that we will start 15 minutes late the next private part of the event with the investors, okay, at 5:15, okay, just so everybody is happy. All right, and let me introduce you to Gonzalo Trigo. Gonzalo is the innovation director from VAS, the company that is sponsoring this award ceremony. Gonzalo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juan Antonio. I would like to thank MIT Enterprise Forum to give us the opportunity of doing these prizes today. And I would like also to thank IESE Business School for allowing us to do in this awesome place. I am Gonzalo Trigo, CTO at VAS. VAS is a Spanish company. It was born in 1999. From the beginning, our goal is to offer digital solutions with the most innovative technologies. And now, we're working in 10 countries with more than 2,200 employees. And in the last 21 years, we have the innovation in our DNA. And in this way, we have created the Innovation Depot. The Innovation Depot is a space for co-working with startups, and MIT Enterprise Forum has the headquarters here in Spain in our offices in Innovation Depot in order to expand this startup ecosystem and investors ecosystem. Without further delay, because we have hurry, we are going to give the prizes, and the first prize is a startup with greater post-COVID industry goes to deep detection. Congratulations, David.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this award. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am David Ciudad, and I'm leading Deep Detection. Deep Detection is the first Spanish company of multispectral camera for X-ray machines to detect foreign bodies and simultaneously differentiate between materials, with patent in USA, Europe, Japan, and China. We solve a real pain problem in the industry, detection of low-density materials such as plastic, wood, and boards. We want to improve food safety and quality. In addition, there are similar problems in other sectors, which are clear business opportunities for us, such as securities, recycling, and materials. As a summary, we have a cutting-edge technology, patented, an excellent business opportunity with clear detected and unresolved problems, 7 industrial pilots underway, and a committed and complementary team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. The next prize is Innovative Startup led by the woman and goes to Exeus. Congratulations, Teresa.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Teresa Tarragó, co-founder and CEO of Exeus. First of all, I would like to thank MIT and IESE. It's really an honor for us to receive this award. You have 22,000 genes in your body. Imagine for a second that you can take a picture of what happens inside your body when you eat, train, or have a disease, and that you can modify it to achieve your goals. This is exactly what we can do with Exeus technology. We apply next-generation sequencing and artificial intelligence to track the expression of your genes, and we help you to reach your fitness and wellness goals. In this way, we can contribute to a healthier and happier life of our customers. Last but not least, I would like to thank you to Exeus team and especially to Paul Cervera for making it possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Most disruptive technology startup goes to Venvirotech Biotechnology. Patricia, congratulations.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Patricia. I'm the executive president of Venvirotech. Membaratech, we are a biotech company that produce biodegradable bioplastic with bacteria. But it's not only what we do, it's how we do it, because we produce these bioplastics feeding our bacteria with organic wastes. We want to create a large-scale circular economy and push forward our particular bioplastic revolution. Right now, we are working with companies such as Nestlé Spain, and we already have more than 2 million euros in private investment. In 2 years, we have grown with more than 20 people in the team, and we have already patented our technology. Welcome to the era of plastics that do not harm the environment. Thank you to IESE and MITEF for this amazing recognition. It's such an honor for us. Thank you.
Congratulations, Patricia, congratulations. And the last prize is for the startup with greater potential to sustainable growth, and goes to Zero to Infinity. Jose Mariano, congratulations.
Thank you. Imagine seeing the Earth like this as a round blue planet in which we all live our common spacecraft through the cosmos, with a background of the black sky and seeing stars during the day. That dream is becoming a reality. But not only that, we're going to be able to connect the whole planet, provide connectivity everywhere. One day that will exist and it will come from space. And also we'll be able to see what's going on the planet and monitor this emissions, the environment, weather, with much greater capabilities. And all this is because we at Zero to Infinity have found a shortcut to space, a shortcut to orbit. We are using, instead of fighting gravity and fighting the atmosphere, we are using it to our benefit using balloons that get us to the edge of space, and from there, anything is possible. My name is Jose Mariano Lopez Urdiales. I'm super excited to be here as a former MIT graduate student. It's really an honor to be back and to get this prize. Thank you so much. Does it look? It's an invisible prize, but
thank you, Jose Mariano. Thank you.
Congratulations to everybody.
I need more to say. This is the prizes. All people have the prize, and I need to say that it's very complex this year to take the decision with the great ecosystem of startups we have here. And now let us with Juan Antonio in order to continue the event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you very much. So without further ado, Julia is going to close the public part of the event. Please stay, for those who are startups and investors, please connect to the private part of the event. You should have the instructions already. For the rest, this is the end of the public part, but we will do a final official closing at the end. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for being here. I hope it has been a profitable afternoon. I learned a lot myself, so I hope that it has also been enlightening for you. And I want to thank you very much to the MIT Forum President Juan Antonio Latasa and the whole team for making this happen. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining the IESE MITEF journey. Thank you very much.